There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. All right, welcome back again. We are here for another episode of Big in the Community. I'm going to start us off with a quote before we get into this. So, there is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. That's Margaret J. Wheatley. I just wanted to use that before we get into this with our guest today. Thank you for being here. I want to introduce Valerie Cunningham, CEO and founder of the Synergy Health Center, Urban Zone, Black Wellness Network, all those things, WMU alum. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited about the work that you're doing here in Kalamazoo with the Promise. A little bit about me. I think that I am a visionary leader, innovative and creative, and I'm passionate about the mission of transforming lives through mental health and reaching all populations, adults, youth, community. Mm-hmm. I want to see community impact and community change. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So where did you, I guess, how far you want to go back? Do you want to talk about like where you were born, where you went to school?
We can hit some of those areas. You know, often people say, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Kalamazoo, but I was really born in Albion, Michigan. Okay. And we moved to Kalamazoo when I was like 9 years old. So I don't like to tell the whole story. Like when I was 9, we moved to Kalamazoo, but moved to Kalamazoo when I was 9, went through KPS schools, went to Western, graduated from Western with my bachelor's in business administration, went back to Western, graduated with my master's degree in social work, met my husband here in Kalamazoo, got married. We have 3 children. Thank God they're all grown, but we have had the opportunity to take advantage of the Kalamazoo Promise twice.
That's awesome.
So the last 2 children that I had, they both graduated. Well, all 3 kids graduated from KPS, but the Promise was implemented a year after the first one graduated.
Oh, okay.
So he didn't get to benefit from that, but the last 2 actually did get to benefit. So I want to say that we are a Promise family in Kalamazoo.
That's awesome. Now you said you did business school, right? And then you did social work.
I know.
What led you to go from business to social work? Very
interesting question. So when I graduated from Western, I was working at the bank, and the bank was a good school teacher of how to do business, how to navigate through different spaces, but it was also very rigid, and it was very control, like you got to be here from 8 to 5. You know, there was no flexibility. And with a growing family, I wanted some flexibility. And so initially, funny story, when I went back to school for social work, it wasn't because I was in love with social work. It was because I was like, you know what? I want my summers off. I'm going to be a school social worker so I can have the summers off and spend time with my family. But then I started substituting for KPS schools. And I thought, I don't think that I want to be working in the school system. So I went back and got my master's degree and fell in love with the nonprofit world, which I didn't know before business. And I ended up working at Bethany Christian Services initially as I did home studies for people who wanted to do adoptions. Okay. And so I traveled to Jackson, all over the state, doing home studies for people who wanted to do private adoptions. And then I did some counseling therapy there, and then I did some supervision work there. Kind of just started working my way up the rank. And what I noticed when I was at Bethany is that there was very few people that looked like me. And there was very few people. There was a lot of youth in the foster care system that were actually coming to get services from Bethany that were youth of color. And I was looking around and trying to figure out, well, where are the people who look like me to provide the services to people that look like them? Yeah. And just found that it was really difficult to find. But Bethany was a really good place to work. And so while I was at Bethany, that was my first job after I got my master's degree. I spent a lot of time there. I think I worked there for like 4 years. And then I decided I'm going to start my own nonprofit. Oh. And I thought I was going to start my own nonprofit because I saw that there was a gap in community. Yeah. And I wanted to be able to fill that gap. Now, did I know what I was doing? Oh, no. Absolutely did not have a clue of what I was doing. But I felt like it was something that I needed to do. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got into business. So the business degree actually helped to facilitate all the social work stuff that I'm doing. So it really came in handy to bring business and nonprofit together.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, it's like your background almost kind of set you up for what you were about to do. Mm-hmm. But in that moment, you might not have known that this is what I'm going to do eventually. I find that really interesting because now, I mean, personally, I'm thinking like maybe I should go get an MBA or something because my wife wants to start an LLC. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I help her? And originally I was going to do counseling psychology because I was like, I really like the idea of it. I want to help people, sit down and talk with people. But I was like, is this going to help support the lifestyle that I want to live when I'm done? Mm-hmm. And then once I started getting into the classes, I was like, I don't know, because there's a lot of just research. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is what I want to be doing. So I find it interesting to hear that from you, that you had one route that seems very different than another, but somehow it still all worked together for what you wanted to do later on.
It did. It married each other, actually. I was in the business world for 10 years before I went back and got my master's degree. And when I went back to get my master's degree, I had 3 kids. Like, what were you thinking? And it was really one of the most challenging academic schedules because they had a set program for you, So it was 60 credit hours in a year and a half. And so it was a lot of work. But, when you think about the bigger picture of things and how we go through life and we never know how all of our experiences are going to culminate together. Mm-hmm. And I believe that everything that have happened in my life up until this point has been like a culmination of things coming together. All of the good experiences, all of the challenges, starting your own nonprofit, people say, oh, I want to quit my day job. I say, oh, no, don't quit your day job because you really don't want to have any money. And you really don't want to survive if you quit your day job starting a nonprofit. And so there's a lot of, looking at it, and it looks like it's glorious to be an entrepreneur and start your own business. But there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of time sacrifice of it starts and falls with you. There's a lot of family sacrifice because you're working harder than you've ever worked if you wanted to succeed. And so I think that everything that it worked together, and it positions you for your future and where you want to go. So when you're thinking about, should I do it, shouldn't I do it, do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's only going to add value to your life. So if you can think about the decisions that you make is added value. It can't take away from anything, but it's only going to add value to what you're doing.
I like that. I'm always taking notes. I'm like, okay, I got it. Value. I might as well do it. Is that scary? Like I guess at what point did you hit where you were like, okay, I'm doing this? Like for sure, no matter what happens, I'm in this.
First a lot of prayer went into it. Like, God, am I making the right decision? And am I prepared? When I worked for Bethany for 3 or 4 years, and then I said, I'm going to start this nonprofit. And I talked to my husband because you're talking about taking a whole salary out of a household. Yeah. We had just moved into our house. We hadn't even been there for 4 years. And I'm like, I feel called to start a nonprofit, and all of the weight and financial responsibility is going to lie with you in this new house we just bought. I don't think he was very happy. As a matter of fact, I know he wasn't very happy, but he supported me.
Yeah.
And so when you count up the cost, it is going to be a cost. That's what I tell people all the time. There is going to be a cost for whatever vision you see, whatever dream you have. It's not necessarily going to land in your lap, but you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to cry about it. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. There are many, many times that I'm like, I quit. I think I wrote something in a devotional, and I said, I think I quit every year. I quit my job every year. every year, I'm sure the enrichments at the empowerments, I mean, not the empowerment center, but the Synergy Health Center, every year I'm probably like, I felt like I would hit a brick wall. And then I would say, I'm quitting. I'm not going to do it. But there is always something in me that says, what if you get past the big wall? You know, what next? Or when I got all of these no's, and I would say, God, all I need is just one yes. And the one yes would give you the motivation to push through to the rest. So.
See, I'm taking more notes this whole time. I'm like, all right, okay, keep pushing, get past the wall.
Get past the wall.
It's beautiful stuff right here. So when did Synergy Center start?
Synergy Center started in October 2003.
Okay.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
It started 20 years ago, and it's so unbelievable that I would still be in the fight.
Yeah.
20 years later. I can remember saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do, at the time I sold real estate, right? Because I was a realtor for like 10, 15 years. So I was selling real estate. I'm like, I'm going to sell real estate, and then I'm going to do this because I got to have some money. And I'm going to quit my job in February of 2004.
Okay. You're like, I got it lined up.
Oh, so I thought I had a plan. I thought I was prepared for the plan.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely not prepared for the plan. I was going to get a contract with the Department of Human Services, and then all of my counseling referrals were going to come through them, and was getting myself set up on insurance panels. This is, masters. After I quit Bethany, and the month that I quit Bethany and I quit my job, DHS put a halt on all contracts and referrals. And so the very place that I thought was going to supply my need was a place that was cut off. And so now it's like backpedaling. And what do? Now, because you're out there, you're on the ledge. So do you go back, or do you push forward? Do you walk on water, right? And whether you sink or swim, are you going to step out there? And I stepped out there, walked on water, and I didn't sink. Well, I didn't drown. I probably sank a couple of times, but I didn't drown. And sinking, it was learning community. And one of the things I would probably say to any new business owner or entrepreneur would be, get yourself out there, meet people. One of the things that I think was scariest for me, because I am naturally an introverted person, naturally. But now my business always forces me out there.
Right.
So naturally, I felt really good and comfortable just sitting behind the desk, feeling like I'm accomplishing. But I really wasn't accomplishing as much as I could if I would just get out there and meet people. And I think the meeting the people, the networking, the building, those are the things that really grow you. They grow your business. They grow community.
Making those connections. I've learned that over the past 2 years, like being here and in my role, seeing the value of actually meeting someone, talking to them. Because I am a very introverted person. I recharge at home playing some video games. That's where I find zen. That's where I find peace. And even, meeting up with family, friends, going out in community, just being in this office, you have to be very extroverted. You have to meet people. You have to talk. You have to kind of come out your shell and just be comfortable in being uncomfortable.
Right.
And it's something that you don't necessarily learn unless you're just forced into it.
Absolutely.
But I see the value of it now. Just seeing Valerie, she's doing the thing with the thing. Get involved.
I know
with
that thing.
But it's so quick to make connections like that, and it really opens doors. I mean, we even here somebody coach somebody's son on a basketball team, and then they connect us to them, and now we're having the middle school kids come here to visit the building. It's the connections you don't see them until they're there.
Yeah.
And it's just so simple. You just happen to know someone in this area, and boom, instant work being made.
Yeah, it's just one person away from knowing somebody who knows somebody else. And that's why those connections become so powerful, because you don't know that you're making a connection until something happens. You're like, oh, I know. I was at court for some reason a couple of months ago, me and my husband, and we were sitting there, and the judge said, I know you. And I was like, you do? He's like, well, we're in the community. She was like, no, I know you. Did your son, Valerie, play football? And I was like, yeah, he played football with my son. I mean, so it was just this whole, Kalamazoo is such a small world because everybody knows everybody. And so it's those kind of connections that you don't even know that your kids are making connections for you.
Right.
And so it is. It's good to make those connections, and it benefits you. It helps you grow stronger as a person when you make connections. It helps you get more involved in community. It makes you create greater impact in community, because now we're finding people who have like similar mindsets, who have like similar vision, and then we can co-labor together. And it's not so hard when you're on an island by yourself trying to do it. Now you have people that have similar visions that you have, and you can work together.
Yeah. Even though we might have a different way of doing it, we all want to see like Kalamazoo succeed.
Absolutely.
And for the people here to thrive. And that might be in different areas, but we're all working towards the same goal.
Right.
So, no, this is all good stuff. So what exactly takes place at Synergy Health Center?
The job. Synergy Health Center, I'm really excited about how we're positioned right now. I didn't think that we would ever get to this position that we're in, but I'm really excited about it. We purchased our own building in 2014, so next year it'll be 10 years that we've had our own building, and just a transition from being in somebody else's house and just paying a little bit of rent to moving in your own house and having to pay all of the rent and all the bills and all the utilities and all of that. Initially, I was like, I don't know how we're going to be able to do this, but I can say that I always attribute like God made a way. And so there would never be a time that I was like, oh, I did this all on my own. I had vision all on my own. I would literally say this would not be what it is if it had not been for God. And what we do on a day-to-day basis. So when I think about all of what we do, we have a team of master's level social workers or licensed professional counselors or whatever academic it is from their master's level. So we have a team of therapists, people call us, who have mental health issues, ranging from kids that are 5 years old all the way up to unlimited age groups, right? Okay. And so we meet the needs of the people in the community through our counseling services, and it is growing as we've done. In 2019, I started doing Breaking the Stigma of African American Mental Health Symposium. And I felt like we needed to highlight ourselves in some kind of way, outside of all the other organizations that's doing counseling. Like everybody's doing counseling. You can go over here, you can go over here. What's going to make us stand out? What's going to make us different? What kind of impact do we really want to have? And so we changed our mission at that point to transforming lives through mental health, substance abuse, and support services with a specific emphasis on African Americans. And so we serve everybody. Our vision is to have generational impact, that we would serve everybody. But our mission is really for Black people or people of color. And so we positioned ourselves on the north side of Kalamazoo. We bought our building intentionally on the north side, which is on Harrison Street, to intentionally meet that need. So we provide about 60% of our clients are people of color. And what makes us different than everybody else is that we are meeting that cultural relationship. We're building relationships based on culture and not just about profession. So the profession is good, but you have to be able to make that connection with the person to help them see that their needs are getting met with somebody who understands them. I think that's our biggest thing that we do. And we do that every day, all day. We are open from Monday to Thursday from 8:30 to 7 p.m. so that we can get the kids that are getting out of school, so they can get families that are working, so that we can kind of meet the needs of the gamut. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we do at the Synergy Health Center. And we've been doing that for a while, right? So 20 years, it was just me. It started off with me, and I did it. And then eventually we hired people, and we began to grow. But in the midst of that, there were so many times that I thought I was going to have to close the doors. When you do nonprofit work, people think that when you're serving a population that doesn't have a lot, that means you don't get a lot either. And so it doesn't matter how much you give out, you're still not going to get in what you would if you were doing a private, right? So we have to see 3 times as many public insurances to get what we would get paid for one private. And so it's triple the work, and a little money that goes into it. So when people say, "Oh, I'm going to start because I'm going to make a lot of money," not a nonprofit. You went into the wrong field if you thought you was going to make a lot of money.
Right. You care.
You care. It's really about the care. It's really about the vision. It's really about the passion. And so we started that. And then in 2016, we started the Urban Zone. Mm-hmm. And the Urban Zone is our youth arm, and it's to empower youth to live life on purpose. And we started that because I felt like there was a need for our young people. And I am all about the 9th to 12th graders. So I like the kids in elementary, but, I really want to get the teenagers. Yeah. And so we started programming in 2016. We started making connections with KidNet. We started making connections with United Way. We started making connections with different organizations that were kid-based. Mm-hmm. And that program has grown from just being an after-school program, which it was like, hey, we created all of this space for you. We created a recording studio. We created a kitchen, a cooking kitchen. We got all this space. We want you to come. And nobody came. Or it was like pulling teeth to get people to come. And then COVID came and caused us to shift.
Yeah.
And it caused us to pivot. And I think we pivoted well. And we went from, hey, we're over here, come and see what we got for you, into developing programs that kids wanted to be a part of and incentivizing those programs so that we can really make an impact and change.
Yeah. It can be tough to get people to come to things, even though like, hey, this is free. We got this going on, yada, yada, yada. But who's going to be there?
Who's going to be there? Who's coming?
do I know anybody else that's going to be there? Do I know you? And that's a tough thing to get into, but those connections, like if you're like, oh, like you actually know some people and it's like, oh yeah, I want my kid to go over to the thing that, Mrs. Cunningham is doing. I want them to go.
Right.
It does. There is a little bit of trust that you have to have to set, especially in a vulnerable thing like that, to go seek counseling. I will say, like, the breaking the stigma, we've done those. That's the promise. Like, we've come to those, or I think we did the virtual.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, and those were amazing. I was sitting there, I was like, I didn't know this stuff. I'm like 30 years old. I don't, I remember we went to KVCC and they were doing a little training on emotions, and it was like for young men, and like we were sitting there, and this was the first time that I saw an emotion wheel.
Oh.
Like I'd never seen this thing before. I was like, what is this? And then I was like, how am I 30 years old? And this is the first time, I'm hearing about this. But then even going to, like, when I was getting into counseling psychology, I was like, well, maybe I should go check out therapy to actually see what I would be doing. And also, do I need to do that? And then, I think I did like 6 sessions.
Okay.
And finally got to like learning about resiliency factor and the things that go into that. And I was like, I never even thought about this stuff. But then also the fact that I was able to have a Black counselor to talk to. And then the connections we made it a lot easier, because there were a lot of things that you wouldn't understand with a different person who didn't grow up in a similar fashion. When I'm explaining things like, there are these things in our household that are normal and that's how we do things. And she's like, oh yeah, I already know what you're talking about. Like,
it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, I think there was also a stigma for myself where I was like, I don't need this, like, I don't want to go to this. But then even having somebody, like, if you find out somebody's doing this, then you're like, okay, maybe I could go check it out. I've had like close friends who would open up and say, like, I've been to therapy, or I've been struggling with depression or anxiety, and hearing that from someone kind of changes your perception. I remember I was listening to one of the deep dives with Dr. John, our other podcast, and they were interviewing somebody, and he just like offhandedly mentioned, like, yeah, when I was in college, I was dealing with depression and anxiety, and just moved past it. Like, just easily able to say that. And I was just sitting there like, man, I wish I could just say stuff that easily. Like, it's no big deal. And now I'm past it. But I think when it's so stigmatized, it's hard to actually just express that, to say that I struggle with this, to say that I dealt with this. So I think it's great work that you're doing, especially with the youth. The sooner that they can see these things and then understand it, the better. Because it can be tough. I mean,
can be tough.
I'm a grown man. I'm like, what is this circle? I got to go from this emotion to this one, and then that's really why I'm upset. And I'm taking notes. Like, I feel like there's so much stuff I have to catch up on, and then pass that on to my son. And then say like, okay, these are things that I didn't know. They can help things be easier for you.
How many of us had families who had conversations around counseling in a Black household? Like, who was saying, something is wrong with you, or what? The question was what's wrong with you versus what happened,
right?
And so it came from a perspective of something was always wrong. So when you have a mindset that I need help, then getting help was wrong because that meant something was wrong with me.
Right.
And how many of our parents even grew up, we were told, just get over it. Get over it. You'll be all right. You just got the blues. It'll be okay. And, sometimes it didn't get better. And who would you talk to, and how would you express that you needed to talk to? And then when you do talk to them, is it minimized? And it takes a lot to say, I have anxiety, or I'm feeling depressed, or it takes a lot for somebody to express those emotions, and how somebody responds to the expression of them will determine what they're going to do. If they're going to move forward and get help, or if they're going to be like, well, maybe I just should keep this to myself. And oftentimes that I found in Black communities, we suffer in silence. We don't say anything because we don't want to be perceived as weak. We don't want to be perceived as something is wrong. There's a lot of perceptions, a lot of false perceptions out there about getting counseling services to help you just figure out and navigate through life. It doesn't mean that something has to be wrong. Sometimes I just need somebody to bounce things off, to give me a different perspective. And sometimes I really am struggling with a illness in my mind. I said we even have to change the language for us sometimes to say, maybe you just need some, I call it in some areas, maybe you just need a mind coach, where they're going to coach you through some of the things versus saying mental health, because, we've been taught in our communities, that person is crazy, and so we don't want that stigma of being the crazy person. So we stay away from that. But I am just so passionate about mental health because it's just like high blood pressure. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to take my high blood pressure medicine because, people going to think I'm crazy. No, I want to live a little longer. So I'm going to take this high blood pressure, this diabetes medicine. And so we can think about mental health in the same capacity. And many years ago, they called it parity. And parity is that mental health disorders get the same attention as medical or physical health issues in an insurance perspective. So mental health used to be not covered at all. And now there was this great fight to get it covered so that it's in the insurance. And so I think that when we can break those stigmas, we can tear down those walls, we can create better access to our people, then we'll see that it'll become more normalized to get help than being stigmatized.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, with it being stigmatized so much and just not even addressing it.
Right.
Like, no, I don't need to worry about that. Like, I'll be fine. I'll sleep it off or walk it off or whatever type of way you want to
until you find that you can't get out of the bed in the morning and you have no energy to get up or wash up or go any place, and you don't want to lift the blinds and you just want to stay in darkness and
just want to hide from the world.
Then you realize something is really wrong.
All right. So, let's see. Next question, because we could talk about this for a long time. Did you have any like mentors or anybody that like helped motivate you to get to where you are now? No. Okay.
No, I'm going to expound. I was thinking like, I don't want to leave nobody out. When I first started, I was looking for somebody to come alongside and say, hey, let me teach you the ropes. Hey, let me show you the way. Hey, I've been where you want to go. Let me show you the way. And nobody did that for me. And it was, and maybe because I didn't know where to go or I didn't know where to look. But when I did put myself out there, I'd call him a mentor, but he was like, I've not mentored you. I've just been a friend and a support. But there were 3 Black men probably like 2 years, 3 years into it that kind of took me under their belt and taught me different things or showed me different things or introduced me to different people. And that was Jeff Patton, who is the CEO of Integrated Services of Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. He just was a person that I could call and say, hey, I need to talk to you. And he always made himself available. And he helped me make some inroads. So he was a person, I would say, who came along and did pull me up and showed me the way. Yeah. And then there's Moses Walker, who is since passed. And Moses was he would say he had Josephines because, we're talking about the Bible with Moses and Joseph. And he really, I would go to him with different questions. And he would say some hard things to me. Like he would challenge me in my business decisions. He would challenge me. I can remember saying, I need to be accredited, but I don't have any money for accreditation because accreditation costs $6,000 just for them to come. And we barely making it. I don't have $6,000. And he said, okay, if you don't do accreditation, where is that going to lead you? Are you going to be able to move forward in your business or you will have to stay the same? Are you going to grow or not grow? And then I was like, he said, it's the cost of doing business. Figure it out. Yeah. And I did figure it out. And so I won't say all the way through, but I didn't feel like I didn't have like a woman. I was thinking like in terms of like, is there any women that would have shared with me or pulled me along? And I didn't have that. It actually was all black males, older gentlemen that weren't threatened by somebody who was trying to do something new.
Yeah. No, that's awesome that you still had somebody to help you. I'm just curious because I see you doing that for other people. I see you like building this network for so many people and doing all this work. I just wonder, is it because you saw that already, or is it because you saw a need that you didn't experience, and you thought, okay, this would have made things easier for me, or it could have jump started me rather than, you need to figure it out on your own, that kind of mentality.
I think I give away because it wasn't given to me, right? And I think, when we look in the bigger scheme of things, had I not gone through all of that, digging the well and digging my way and finding my way, I wouldn't have this experience to be able to say, hey, I've been there, done that. This is maybe what you want to do. So that experience, I chalk it up to the culmination of that's what made me who I am, even though I would have loved to have some jump start. So I don't mind ever freely giving because it wasn't freely given to me in some aspects. And so I want to try to make it easy for other people who are visionaries and entrepreneurial to say, these are the things that you need to really think about and consider. These are the easy, these are the hard, and give them some insight and some direction. So I don't mind doing that at all.
Nice. I appreciate the work you're doing, honestly. I mean, it's hard to just say, okay, I'll do this. Even though like it wasn't done for me. It's a tough thing, but it shows that like you have a heart that you really want to transform Kalamazoo and you want to transform people's lives. If you were to do anything to transform Kalamazoo, and there weren't politics, there wasn't money, like nothing could get in the way, what would it be that you do to transform Kalamazoo?
Now you ask a hard question.
Sorry.
Kalamazoo is so full of resources. I mean, it is rich in resources. And we think about what is the biggest challenges that Kalamazoo faces. That would probably be my starting point, is to say, what is the biggest challenges that they're facing in line with the vision or the mission or the passion area that I'm drawn to. And I think that I would probably continue to do some of the work that I'm already doing. And when I think about 2021, and I was doing some discovery work in Kalamazoo around racial disparities, and that's become a new passion that I didn't even know that it was had, because I didn't realize the disparities that existed until I started researching the disparities. And I guess one of the things I would do is to really work hard at eliminating and reducing those racial disparities that would get us all on the same playing field. Oftentimes when I'm presenting at places like I did something at WMed for their prevention, their suicide prevention symposium. And one of the things, I show a picture of 4 quadrants, and there's a tree. And I said, we're always talking about equity. And I don't necessarily believe in equity. I believe in justice. And I'm gonna backtrack on that. But that's what I would bring to Kalamazoo. I would bring systems that were equitable for everybody, right? And so when we talk about the quadrant that I was talking about, it was a tree, and the tree was bent, and the fruit was falling to the one person on this side, but the other person was getting no fruit, even though they were the same size. And so, they said, well, that's not equal. So let's create equality. So let's give everybody the same size tool to help them. And so the tree is still bent, the fruit is falling on, but we now both get a ladder of equal when the tree is bent in the favor of somebody else. And then you have the third quadrant. It says, well, we should have equity. Equity means that we're going to customize the tools that we have so that you need a little bit more higher tool because the tree is bent and you don't need it as high as a ladder. We'll use a ladder. So I'm going to give you a high ladder because you can't reach the tree. I'm not going to give you as high as ladder because the fruit are already fallen. But it doesn't matter how tall the ladder is, the tree is still bent and the fruit is still falling over to the other side.
Right.
But when you fix the bend in the tree, then now you have justice because the bend in the tree is the systems, and the systems have always been bent in the favor of other people. But if you fix the bend in the tree, you create equality, you create justice. You have systems that are favorable for everybody. There is no inequities, there is no racism, there is no discrimination. So I think for Kalamazoo, in my research and what I found is that there is those racial inequities still exist all over the place. And I think one of the things I would do is highlight that and think about what systems or what work we can do to change that so it's better for all of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've seen those examples. Like I've seen one that was it was a plant, and it was this plant had rich soil, and this one had like no nutrients in the soil, or different ways to explain it. I've seen different types of people on bicycles, and then one where each bike was customized for each person to fit their needs. And I think it's really important for people to see images like that because it's hard to see racism. It's hard to see inequities. But when you put it into a simple way of like, here's bicycles, not all these people can ride these bicycles the same way. These people are going to win the race or like be further ahead than the others just because of they're using the same thing when we talk about equality, but equity, making things that, fit everyone. But then I like how you added justice to fixing the original thing.
Like fixing it.
Yeah. That's a whole nother, aspect.
Yes, it's a whole nother aspect. And I think that our community is primed for that. Of course, I think it would take years and years and years and years. But I think that the conversations have opened people up to looking at systemic racism and systemic issues that have historically kept Black people and people of color out of receiving proper services, receiving necessary help, and all of those things. And my development of Black Wellness Network has been about the wellness, the overall wellness of a person of color. And it is to bridge the gaps in services. How can we bridge these gaps? How can we make getting access to services easier? How can we break the stigma? How can we break people's shame and fear attached to getting help? And then that helps us to build stronger communities. And so I want to see us have stronger communities.
Okay. No, I like that answer. I mean, you wrapped it all up. You talked about multiple things. But then seeing just like we need a stronger community. What are your favorite things about Kalamazoo?
Ooh, I like a lot about Kalamazoo. I like the smallness of it. I like that I can get anywhere in Kalamazoo within 20 minutes, even with some traffic. Right. I like that it's a family-oriented town. I really do. I think that raising my 3 kids in Kalamazoo was the best thing that I could have done. I mean, it was, they were able to be involved. It's community. I think knowing community, I think that's been a really good thing. So the resources that it has had, the family, the welcoming of families into this community. I think it's a very family-driven community. With all of the colleges, you're coming here and we only have Western and KVCC, but there was 5 colleges here at one time. There was Davenport, there was Nazareth College, there was all of these colleges. It was a full college town of college students. But I love the family and community most.
I like the family part too. I mean, we'll go for walks in our neighborhood, and just like people will be like, "Oh, hey," like it's. Even though I'm introverted, in those moments I'll be like, okay, I see why people enjoy going out and doing things.
One other thing, the reason I like Kalamazoo, it is in the middle of Detroit and Chicago. It's like that midway point that if you want to take a quick trip, hop on the train, spend the weekend in Chicago, you can. If you want to drive down, it's not that far away from big cities too. Yeah. So it's a perfect medium.
So if the Kalamazoo Promise was available to you, how would that have changed things for you?
That's a great question. I think that it would have given me more choices to think outside of Kalamazoo and to the state of Michigan of where I could go to school. But that wasn't an option for me because my parents said I was too shy and they weren't going to let me go anywhere outside of Kalamazoo. So I think for me, it would have provided less financial strain on my parents who were putting like 2 or 3 kids through college at the same time. Yeah, I think that would be the thing that it would have done for me. I still would have wanted to pursue education, but I may have considered other options other than just Kalamazoo.
Okay. So if there was a gold nugget of information that you would share with someone, I know you gave a little bit earlier, but what if they wanted to do what you do, what would that gold nugget of information be that you share with them?
The gold nugget. I think for me, the gold nugget of information would be don't lose sight of the vision. I mean, because it's going to rain, it's going to storm, it's going to all kinds of things are going to happen, but don't lose sight of where you're wanting to go and the impact that you want to make on the people's lives that you're going to encounter. So that's what I would say. And I would say in the middle of crying about it, dry your eyes and keep on going. And I've cried many, many nights. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but keep focused. Stay focused on the original intent. And I think you'll see some things happen for you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Why do you think that it's important to expose and share with community about other people and organizations?
I think the biggest thing is just when I meet different people, when I meet these different organizations and hear all the work that they're doing, I'm just like, I didn't know about this. I didn't have this growing up. And I just think about how different things would have been for me. Like, not to say that like I didn't have any help or anything, but I hear about different things. I'm like, man, if I had that, if I would have been involved with that, even I don't know, recent stuff. Like, I'm like, oh, there's like, we just had a baby and there's Healthy Baby, Healthy Start. And it's not even like income based. It's not anything. And they're like, yeah, you can sign up. You can get help with all this stuff. You can get diapers. You can get wipes. You can get like furniture. You can get all these things. I was like, if I didn't stop at this table and hear about this, I wouldn't have known about it. But it just makes things that much easier. It gives you a jump start. It makes it so like you can actually get ahead and kind of break like those generational, like, when people talk about like generational wealth and all those things, it's like, how do you get there? But if you can't tap into the things around you, when you can't tap into the resource rich Kalamazoo, it just because you didn't know. And that's why I really am passionate about this stuff, is because the more people that I can share this with, the more that can help break all the inequities that are here, or at least make it more equitable in my own way. I always think about like, what's my sphere of influence? Where can I help? What can I do? And if it's simply telling somebody about what's going on here, then I'll do that. That will make me be extroverted. Yeah. Even though I don't necessarily want to, it gives me the purpose and the reason to do it. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. I'm glad for the opportunity, and I agree. So many times you have hidden gems, and nobody know that it's there because nobody's exposed to hidden gems. So thanks.
Yeah. Hey, anytime. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think that you asked a lot of questions. They were really good questions and thought-provoking questions that really focus on community. And so I can appreciate that and the work that the Promise is doing. So thank you.
Thank you. How can people get involved with what you're doing?
Oh, that's great. I mean, they can get involved by, if you are a wellness provider of any kind, doctor, nurses, nurse practitioners, therapists, you can be a part of the network. The network is Black Wellness Network. You can get to it from our website, which is synergykzoo.org. That will be a big thing because that's a part of us building a collective group of people that will help bring justice. Mm-hmm. And so that's one part one way you can be involved. Along with that, we are looking for people to learn and grow through the health shops. You know, you have to play on words, workshops, health shops that we're doing to help break the stigmas. We're always looking for volunteers to help to give back to community, especially in our youth programming. We have over 50 kids, I think, that we're reaching through our youth programming right now, through our Be Brave group and our Mind Health Ambassadors program. So there's always volunteer opportunities and ways of helping us get the word out about the work that we're doing to change lives and have generational impact. And you can reach me at Valerie C. at synergykzoo.org, or you can call the office at 269-323-1954.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm glad that we're able to partner in this way. I hope we can keep partnering. I hope that the Black Wellness Network continues to grow. And thank you for sharing your story. People need to hear it, and that way they can be ready, be confident, and be successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.